So I'm excited to have Jason Plumb today from DorkbotPDX. He does have a regular job as well. My understanding is that this is his side project or hobby. He's going to explain us more what DorkbotPDX is. And yeah, thanks a lot for being here. The stage is all yours.
Cool, can we dim the lights a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the introduction. My name is Jason Plumb. I am a Portlander. I moved back to Portland in 2002, and I've been working with DorkbotPDX now for about 6 years. And my background is in electrical engineering and computer science. That's what I studied in college. And my day job is a software engineer, so I make money by writing software for other people. And so, just to sort of gauge the crowd, like I know some of you have been from DorkbotPDX, and I really appreciate that. How many of you have ever heard of DorkbotPDX before this meeting? So a handful. Okay, and how many of you have ever been to a meeting of DorkbotPDX here in Portland? Do you have one? Anybody been to a DorkbotPDX anywhere else? No? Okay. So cool. I'll just start jumping right in. Please feel free to interrupt or ask questions at any time. So what is DorkbotPDX? That's the question I get whenever I mention this. People sort of look really confused and they're ponderous. What is this DorkbotPDX thing? I'm trying to explain it to them, but they usually have this like preconceived notion that like, oh, you guys build robots, right? It has the word bot in there, so clearly you guys build robots. No, not really. Oh, you can explain it a little bit more, and then they're thinking, okay, you guys build art. That's right, that's what you do. Yeah, that's kind of true sometimes. Then, what is this thing? Really, I'm going to be challenged here to explain all of what DorkbotPDX is, because it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But I have my work cut out for me. So traditionally, DorkbotPDX is this melding of art and electronics. It's really electronic arts. It's a way for people to use newer technologies to facilitate expression through artistic expression, really. And it started in New York City by a man named Teuscher, and it was an offshoot or a side project from another project he had started called ArtBots. And that was specifically geared at robots that were making robots that were making art. And he did that for several years, had several calls out, and then sort of forked it into this thing called DorkbotPDX. And DorkbotPDX was more of a platform or a way for people to present their work, usually in lecture form through slides, and have it reviewed and to show it off to other people. Traditionally, electronic works. And so DorkbotPDX, the tagline for DorkbotPDX is people doing strange things with electricity, which is pretty open-ended, right? It's a pretty broad topic. And we, at least here in Portland, take it pretty liberally too. Like, electricity can apply to a lot of things. So we bend the rules on what that means. Mostly it has to do with electronics, mostly it has to do with computers, but there's other realms as well. So in Portland, we do things a little bit differently. So in other cities, DorkbotPDX was started in New York City by DorkbotPDX, and has branched out to at least dozens of other cities, and there are organizations doing DorkbotPDX things in other cities. And almost always, it's people showing up at a space, listening to a couple of presentations, maybe asking a question or two, and then going home. And that's all nice, but we do things a little bit differently in Portland. And so our format, what I think our core sort of facets are beer, infrastructure, talks, workshops, and projects. And talks sort of are the traditional DorkbotPDX focus. If you go to a DorkbotPDX in another city, that's kind of what you'll see is a talk where people give a presentation, they give a lecture, they show off some work. We have some other facets too, and so I want to talk about those. In Portland, this is really what we're about. We're about hacking, about making, reverse engineering, experimenting, hopefully failing a lot along the way, teaching, learning, tinkering. We do it with electronics, we do it with microcontrollers, we have wearables and textiles, we use creative software, we use systems and materials that might be unconventional, we do it in a social setting, we do it in a way that's critical, but hopefully still fun, and we try and be as open as possible about how we're doing it. So I wanted to show this video to sort of get people motivated. And I recognize these two people, they're sitting over there. and made this video, and I actually think it's pretty cool. So that's a video that Paul Stoffergen put together, and he did it on a random night in, I gotta get caught back up, sorry guys. He did it on just a random night last November, and you know, it was cold out. I didn't think there were that many people that showed up, and he even said, like, I'm gonna do this video and, like, you know, see what kind of, like, focus on projects and stuff. I thought to myself, I don't know that there's that much here, but hopefully, you know, over a few meetings you'll get some footage. And then he turned this thing out. It's just like all of this amazing stuff that was there that people were working on. That was just all from one night of DorkbotPDX. So people, as you caught a glimpse of there, they're bringing their projects, they're working on stuff, they're collaborating, they're helping each other, they're challenging each other. And so that's really what our sort of bi-weekly meetings are about. I'm going to skip over that history a little bit because I talked about Repetto, and I'm going to go into the Portland history as much just because of time. So there was a question that was asked about what does it take to become a member? And we get that question a lot, actually. And the great thing is the simple answer is we are super loosely organized. We have no money. We don't have a budget. People you know, do limited amounts of fundraising as needed just to accomplish usually a project, but we don't have, you know, a bank account. The best way to take part, if you want to take part, is to show up. We encourage everybody to show up, and it's open, it's free as much as it can be. We also strongly encourage people that are interested in these things to volunteer. So offer to host a workshop, offer to do a talk. But yeah, mostly just do something. It's really a self-organized effort. And we do have some people that are overlords who take a more active role in sort of steering or organizing. But really, it is open to anybody who wants to organize an event. And I'll talk about some of the things that have come out of it. So I did already talk about how to take part. So when I said beer, what I really mean, not just beer, although we do it every 2 weeks and there's beer there. It's really just, this is our way to informally get together, like you saw in the video, without having slides prepared, without having to sit and listen to one person talk for 20 minutes or 30 minutes. Way more free form. It's come and go, usually starts at 7, and it's a backspace, which is in Old Town, 5th and Cooch, so anybody's interested. Yeah, like just like the video shows, like this is just regularly, every other Monday, I'm constantly overwhelmed at like the beautiful things and just the micro curation. Like somebody will show up with their project, and the next thing you know, you have 15 or 20 people standing around, they'll be showing it to them. So really, it's a way for people to show their work and get feedback early in the process before installing it or demonstrating it or performing it somewhere. It's just a really, to me, it's a really interesting and powerful thing that we've developed here. And it's very different from other DorkbotPDX. So as far as infrastructure goes, we, to just help stay organized, to get the word out, to allow people to find us and to collaborate, we have some infrastructure things. So I'm just going to go through these kind of quickly and not show them to all of you. But when I make the slides available, this will kind of be a go-to thing. Starting point is the DorkbotPDX.org website. If you go there, there's links to the rest of these things, but we have 2 mailing lists that are medium to low volume, medium to low traffic. That's the announcement list for big events or things that are happening, and the other is just a blabber list where people are free to ask questions and bounce things back and forth. It's not very high volume. We have an IRC channel on Freenode. That's used quite a bit. We have a Vimeo group, so Vimeo is a video sharing site. We have a DorkBot group on Vimeo. That's where you saw that Paul's video from. We use Calligator pretty heavily. That's not specifically a DorkBot thing, but we try and post our major events there. We have a Flickr group that has been ignored a lot, but hopefully we can keep that going. Except for Don, he uses all of it. So I will also consider OHS Park part of the infrastructure because it kind of fell out of this. So this is Lane, James Neal's project. And you can go and you can find out more about it, but it's really a group PC board ordering system. So you can design, has anybody heard of this or used this?
Which spelling is it? OHS or OSH?
Oh no! I think it's OSH, right? Yeah. So ignore the top one.
OSH source hardware is what the OSH is for.
Yeah, sorry about that. Transfers. So this is a service by which you can design a PC board and upload the Gerbers, which are the files that describe the PC board, and they will get merged in with everybody else who has submitted their works into a big panel. And so this started off as something that Lane would do maybe once a month, once every 2 months as the interest got more and more, and he started taking orders. I can't claim any credit. As he started taking orders from people outside of Portland, it grew and grew, and I think he's doing 2 or 3 panels a week, which is a lot of PC boards. If you see projects online that have this nice looking purple PC board, they almost certainly came from Lane's board service, and it's a really nice service. So the thing that really distinguishes this from some of the others is that I think all of the work is done domestically, and not even just domestically, but local. So regional to Portland, or the boards are fabbed out near Oregon City. I think, Don, is that right?
No, I think he kept it in the States, but we weren't able to get he wasn't able to get the price points.
He had to switch, but it's still domestic.
But he's still in the States. I mean, that was like, I think he would have dropped it if he couldn't have.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so it's been an important thing is keeping it here, keeping the work here. Anyway, it's an amazing service. You can get boards made on a quick turn. So quick meaning I think he's like 12 days right now for a turnaround, and it's really inexpensive because you're sharing the space on the panel with other people. If you come to the informal meetings, you'll see a free parts box that people throw parts into. There's usually just a random mishmash of things, but there's often some interesting parts that show up, and a lot of surface mount stuff. And we have this recurring group order that's kind of installed because, I don't know, there hasn't been a lot of discussion around it lately, but I'd love to see it rejuvenated because with all of the hobbyist shops and Radio Shacks sort of just like tapering off and not having parts anymore, it's really hard, and you end up ordering stuff and paying a ton for shipping, and you waste all this packaging, and so we've been pooling our resources to do group orders, and so you have 10 or 20 people put in their requests into the pool at the same time. It comes in one order, you reduce the shipping per person, and you also reduce the amount of packaging. So this is a really nice service. Hopefully we can keep that going. It's kind of stalled right now. So we also do traditional DorkBot style talks and lectures. We did the first one in summer of 2007 at a bar in North Portland, and it was sort of just branching out. I gave one of the talks, John gave one of the talks, and I don't want to go into too much detail on all of these because I think we're up to 10 of these now. So we've done these lecture series, but I just wanted to sort of highlight some of what we've seen. So our next one was in spring of 2008 at one of the show spaces for PNCA over in the Pearl District. We had Ward Cunningham, who's with us here tonight, talking about bacteria designing computers, and we had David talking about Forth. We had Kathy talking about using LEGO Mindstorms in education. Then that same year in the fall, at About Us, we had a talk and a performance by Colin, who is a cellist, and he has built an electronic cello and this surface that you can play with a garden trowel, and so they did an experimental music piece. We also had the Overlord from DorkBot Seattle come down and talk about the way they do things up in Seattle. And we had Steve Davey, who's an educator, talk about his techniques, and he also runs the I think it's Tinkering School, which is a camp for kids involving tinkering. 2009 came around, and we had 3 artists go talk at this one. So Andrew and Michael and Dan are artists, and they presented some work. I'm just going to kind of cruise through that. We had some visiting artists from New York City, former Portlanders, show up in 2009, and we accommodated them with a session. And you might see the word open door on here. I haven't really talked about that. So in these lecture events, when we do events where people present works, we also have basically an open mic where we call it Open Door. And if you have a project that you want to show off in like 5 minutes or less, we give a platform for that. Anybody can come up and ask questions or solicit or show off some work in a small capacity, basically open mic. We had a summer party in 2010, which basically, I had forgotten the format of this, so I went back and looked, and what it was essentially just a gigantic open door. So we had like, 10 people show their works in an open door, sort of short lecture format. And then we had, I think, 4 or 5 of us do some noise and experimental music. We had, in 2011, so we're starting to get caught up to present, we had Ward give another talk about the smallest federated wiki. And we had Carl talk about Chunk 666, which was a bike project, which kind of doesn't have anything to do with electricity, but I think the argument was made that power tools were used to. Then in 2011, we had another event in December. Let's see, what was this one? It was Simran. He made a 3D Bongo game. You can play it online. And there's also a talk from Ward on getting started with radio frequency stuff, so doing radio work. So hopefully just the titles, and even though I'm going quickly over this, can give you a sense of like the kinds of things we're doing. Right? There's people building kooky games. There's people doing like hardware hacking and working on building radios and doing really sophisticated things with hardware. But there's also people doing art and doing installations and building some interesting things. So Jared gave a talk about this device called the Bus Pirate, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a second. But basically he said, I discovered this thing and we use it all the time. It's really valuable. I think Dork probably want to hear about it. He gave a nice talk about it. On the same night that Travis talked about the Arduino, which is just a killer project of this telerobotic arm that's in his closet with like a bunch of toys. There's like a little scene there, and you can control it remotely over the web and like stack stuff up and carry around a little man. And it's just amazing. We can do this in real time. Just cruise through these other events here. So Christy Denton is, I think she's a choreographer, and she has a laser-controlled performance piece. And Jeremy is also an artist, and he was using processing to build some digital paintings that are sort of evocative of, what's his name, I'm forgetting.
Pollock?
Yeah, Jackson Pollock, thank you. So, I actually got out of order here, but I'll just keep cruising. So I'm not going to spend that much time on workshops, but we do tons of workshops. So for the last, I would say 3 to 4 years, we've been doing workshops every month. So basically on the last Sunday of every month, we've been doing workshops. And I think we've been doing it for a solid 3 years that way. Going on 4 probably, yeah. So just to give you an idea, I think this was mostly a software workshop, so you don't see a lot of soldering irons out, but we're giving these workshops as much as possible at cost or very inexpensively or free in all of the cases. So for a workshop like this, where it's a software-based workshop, we're offering it up for free. It's by people that know some things, that are interested in inspiring others and trying to get together and just share that. So this is by no means a comprehensive list of workshops that we've done or are doing. For at least a couple of years, Don has been offering the Arduino cult induction. So it's for people. How many people have heard of the Arduino? Okay, I knew that would get some hands up. All right. So the Arduino cult induction is using very bare bones Arduino-based board that Don designed. That's Arduino compatible, and it teaches people how to solder one of these up from scratch using through-hole parts and how to program it. And it's been hugely successful. I did a circuit bending workshop a few years ago, which is taking apart children's toys and rewiring them in fun ways to make them do crazy things. We've done a series of workshops on Pure Data, which is it's a programming environment for doing creative sound applications or sound design music. We've also done a workshop. We've done a couple of workshops now on processing, which is a programming language for doing. It's a programming environment for doing mostly creative programming. Electronics, PC board design, soldering, electronics basics. That's doing an e-textiles workshop that's recurring now. And I put your workshop here because we're open to more. I mean, we are always looking for people who are interested in hosting a workshop. If you are doing something interesting or useful that you think other people can benefit from, we are open to hearing about it. And we have this thing called Open Lab that we do occasionally. I think we've been doing it once a quarter, a couple times a year, where it's free form. There's no agenda. We just all show up in the space, maybe bring a project and work on it for 4 or 5 hours. And that's been fun. So we have, in addition to the workshops and the talks that we do, we have some group projects. And this is something that took us a long time to sort of get momentum for. It's something that I always talked about and wanted to do more of. And that's group projects, collaborative projects. A lot of times you tinker in your bedroom and you show up and you have this one thing. And that's great. And people are building some amazing things by themselves. But it's also nice to collaborate. And you can get so much more done with the right group of people when you're collaborating. You also get a difference of perspective, right? You just have a difference of opinion. Somebody who solved a problem in a different way than you have, and amazing things can come out of that. And we're getting better at that, I think. So a couple of years ago, it looks like October of 2009, we had a group show at a gallery in the Pearl District, and we opened on First Thursday. And this is just a short list of some of the projects that were there. I'm not going to go into too much detail. There's a URL there if you want to look it up later. A couple of years ago at Tour Camp, we organized one of the camps at Tour Camp. It is the first really American hacker camp where hackers get together and work on projects and present work about computer security and security in general. This one was out in the desert at a Titan II missile silo, and we organized a camp there around DorkBot, and we had people from other cities from DorkBot who were interested in this, I don't want to call it a movement, but interested in these ideas come together and camp with us. And we were mostly involved in organizing our camp and getting people involved, and a couple of us played a closing ceremony performance. And there's a link to the video. So going back to the discussion, or the project, the talk I mentioned that Jared gave about the bus pirate, was this effort where somebody on the mailing list, or a few people on the mailing list, started discussing this idea of building some bus pirates. So this bus pirate is an open hardware design. You can go to the designer's website and download the schematics and the PC boards, and you can have them built. And he's got a parts list, and you can actually just build one of these from scratch. And somebody said, that bus pirate's really cool. I want to build one of those. And who else wants to build one? And this exchange between people developed and grew. Lane ended up, I think, making the boards for free. And we had probably 40 or 50, I think was about the number of bus pirates that were made completely from this community effort. It was very organic, which is why I use this graphic. Like, it was this was a humongous organic effort that came out of this talk that Jared gave. Which just, yeah.
Can you explain what a bus pirate is?
Yeah, I probably should do that, huh? Bus pirate is a device that you can hook up to various signals and it'll help you troubleshoot. So in Jared's talk specifically, he was talking about inspecting N2C, which is a wire protocol. So sniffing on N2C to sort of see what's going on. It supports a bunch of other protocols, and that's primarily what's geared at, is looking at line level protocol stuff. So yeah, there were a bunch of people interested in this. It was pretty affordable, yes.
How is it different from Wireshark?
So Wireshark is strictly software-based. Is that what you're thinking about? Yeah. So this is a hardware-level wire protocol sniffer, as opposed to like a software protocol sniffer, which I think is the main difference. So this is actually in hardware.
So can it sniff even on USB and Wi-Fi? Depends on the hardware you interface.
I would not expect it to be. Yeah. So it would depend on the hardware interface. I would not expect it to be able to do like Wi-Fi out of the box. USB, I think it operates over USB, so I'm not sure that it would be able to sniff at USB.
So it's something built on top of Arduino?
I don't believe so.
There's
Yeah.
a TS630, I think. I'm not sure.
You can find out more about the Bus Pirate. If you Google it, you'll find it pretty quickly. That you will also get to this blog entry that links out to. But this was really amazing. This was people just pulling together and building this thing and doing it very, like I said, organically. They organized all the parts to be delivered, and then parts were organized. There were hot plates set up where people could reflow these boards and walk away with. I think everybody that went walked away with a working unit. So it's pretty amazing. Last year we did another group show at another gallery in the Everett Station Lofts, and so a small gallery and a pretty big show. I think we packed 11 artists into this really, really small space. And again, I don't want to go into too much detail because I want to leave time for questions. But these are the exhibits, and you can look at some of that. This is again, I don't have time to showcase everybody's work, so I'm going to showcase my own. I had this project on the left, which was a laptop that was on Twitter, and it tweeted these progressively more depressing messages before committing suicide. And then the thing on the right is originally called the breathalyzer synthesizer. So if you drank alcohol and blew into this, it would change the dynamics of a synthesizer patch that was playing. And then an ongoing project right now that started in January is this Exquisite Corpse project, where we have, so this plays on the idea of the Exquisite Corpse, which was an artistic project started by the Surrealists, and one artist would draw a little bit of a picture, and they would cover part of it up and hand it to the next artist, and they would sort of build onto that. At the end, you'd have this kind of crazy piece that was built on one artist only seeing a fraction of what the previous artist had made. So I looked around, and so that technique has been applied to like film, has been applied to music, but I haven't ever seen it like applied to like electromechanical sort of physical things. And so I started this project in January, and we just transitioned it, did the October switchover last night, and so far we've had 10 people. It's going to end at the end of the year, and it's pretty crazy. We had a group project in tour camp this year called the Mobile Church of Robotron. It was started by Brian. And I can't go into all the detail because it would take a long. You could do a full talk just on this church, and we will. But the basic premise is that we have this church. It's based around this video game, Robotron 2084, which is clearly the best video game ever invented. But we built this entire church mythos around it, and we had some amazing like hacks involved. And this is a photograph of a kid playing it in front of the altar that you had to kneel on to play this video game. I do want to show a video of it that Libby made, which is a pretty. See if I can get this to work.
Members of the human family, hear me! The Robotrons are coming! Yes, The Robotrons are coming! Only the mutant savior will have the power to stop a Robotron. But how? The writings say due to a genetic engineering error. Error brings our salvation in the form of the mutant savior. And if error brings about our salvation, should we not go about committing error willy-nilly? In short, the answer is yes. Even so, we must do more than committing errors. We must also take up the 2 8-ways so that each of us knows what the mutant savior must do to save the last human family. We must saturate the cosmic unconscious with the knowledge the mutant savior will need to save us. Yes! The more we know, the longer we take up the 2 8-ways, the greater the number of the last human family the mutant savior can save. We must gain this knowledge in musty basements. We must gain this knowledge in dank garages. We must gain this knowledge in crowded, sweaty arcades. Only in this way will the mutant savior be able to save the last human family. Do these things and encourage others to do likewise. We do not know how long the mutant savior will hold the Robotrons at bay. Is it worthwhile if the mutant savior is only successful in giving humanity freedom for an hour? What about an extra day of freedom? A year? Generations? We owe it to the mutant savior, in this time, long or short, to do something beautiful.
The lady made to showcase like some of what this church was about, but we had Jacob's ladders going, we had lasers that were keying off of in-game events after putting hooks into certain hardware points in the ROM. We had a lot of stuff going on, and we'll give a talk about that soon. There was also the mini Maker Faire that happened a few weeks ago. Did anybody go to Maker Faire? So down at Omsey on the waterfront, there was a mini Maker Faire. And we had some people in DorkbotPDX who stepped up and worked on presenting some work there. This is an actual hive that was in a glass enclosure, and it was related to a project that Tom did, which was an electronic bee counter. So it's counting bees as they're going in and out of the hive. This is Matt, who does some aerial photography and amateur map making by sending cameras and video cameras up on balloons and kites. And this is Steve Davies' mobile tinkering shop where kids were building rockets and setting them up. And so, as I said going into this, there's tons of amazing stuff. I will not be able to credit everybody, but I'm sorry that I couldn't just showcase everything that we've done in 6 years, but hopefully I've given you a glimpse of it, because this is a crazy time, and I'm constantly overwhelmed and just like really moved by this community, and that's why I keep coming back. And so I'll open it up to questions. I've run kind of long, so I will open it up to questions.
Can you say more about creative software?
About creative software?
Yeah.
Right, so when you go to school to learn about programming, they're like, teaching you the basics of a language, or they're teaching you to solve like some very academic problems, But these things can be used to make art. I mean, you can throw caution to the wind and just program up visuals. You can program up some sound, or you can make a program that makes a robot move in a certain way. It's a pretty open-ended question. There's some platforms like processing. If you go to processing.org as a starting point, there's some wonderful examples there about how to get.
RTX is Lego, like RTX.
Yeah, I haven't used it, but I'm assuming there's an equivalent in Mindstorms, right? Yeah. Yes.
I have two questions.
Sure.
But so I guess one of the questions was, do you guys ever present this to like high school high schoolers or somewhere, or maybe, you know, elementary school or something, just kind of, I don't know, there's a lot of, that was quote unquote nerds in high school that would probably love something like this, I guess.
So to date, we haven't done a lot of that. We early on did an event with PARTS, which is the Portland Area Robotics Society. And there were some events there that kids worked with. There's some of us right now working with Chick Tech, which is a non-for-profit organization trying to get women in engineering more engaged earlier on. And we're helping out with that. We're hosting a workshop in January with high school students, high school girls, to get them interested, hopefully, and engaged in technology. So there's a little bit of that, but we don't explicitly.
And the other one is, what happens to the projects once they're done? Has there ever been like, I don't know, a company that might have just seen something and said, wow, we would definitely use something like this, or, I mean, I know you guys don't advertise to that, but it seems like there's a lot of innovation going on, and it would be something that,
It depends on the nature of the project. So I would say half or more of the art projects probably just get scrapped or reused. Some of the people who are more serious artists like keep that stuff around because they want to be able to show it. Like if there's an exhibition that happens, they want to have that art ready to show. As far as real world projects, I think some of them just get stuck on the shelf. Some of them have turned into products, kind of. That's a complicated answer. It really varies with the project, I would say, on what happens to them when you're done. Yes?
So I'm actually more interested in the bus pirate. Has that been used in any real world products or anything like that? Or what kind of?
Cameron?
Yeah, I can answer that one.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so that is actually, it's based on an actual board that's put out by a group called Dangerous Prototypes that used to be out of Iowa, and then they've moved. But yeah, the kit itself is for, well, it's not a kit, but the pre-made board is for sale, and that is like one of their products. However, it's open source hardware, which means that they lease all of the source code and the schematics, the software and the hardware in order to get it to work. And so the DorkBot, this Bus Pirate group, was just an adaptation of this project.
And grand liquid source.
Right. Their stuff is sourced out of China through Seed Studios, which is one of the biggest PCB manufacturers offshore that caters specifically to open source.
More questions today?
Is there any requirement, I know it's sort of a cultural thing that it's all going to be open, is there any sort of requirement that people bringing in projects are treating those projects as open source, or?
There's no requirements. In fact, we have some projects that are explicitly, somebody wants to be able to monetize it. And so that's their right. We disagree about that sometimes. But it provokes interesting discussion, and there's absolutely no requirement. You can bring something and not approve it, but that's kind of counter to the culture.
I was going to have a question about that. If people bring in projects and monetize them, doesn't it kind of open up their project to have somebody take it and run with it elsewhere? And I don't know if there's proprietary issues with that, if you're going to try and monetize the product, or are people kind of careful about that?
I think most of the people that are working on projects are not specifically looking to monetize it, so I haven't seen that be a real concern across the board, but it certainly has come up, and it's certainly an interesting discussion/argument to have over years every other Monday.
Arduino is a great example for that, because Arduino started like an open hardware software, and they monetized it eventually.
And the company behind Arduino has made a bunch of money in the process, and there's been a bunch of spin-offs and rip-offs and forks of that project, which I think has really that's helped foster this ecosystem.
But they're also a derivative of another thing. So it's not like, if it's about money, as long as you have, it's more about the business model. But we're less about the business model. We're about, hey, Sorry to steal that, Jason.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. Please. Yes.
Have there been any projects that have happened that are like automotive related, anything that?
We had somebody show up with an electric motorcycle. There's that startup here in Portland to build an electric motorcycle. That thing was really cool. I'm not sure of any others. There's like some bicycle related projects, but not so much car. Or like
Just anything, I mean, well, and the reason I'm asking that question is because I work for a local automotive company, and we have an organization and do technical presentations once a month and stuff like that. It'd be really cool to have something like that. Or
Yeah,
any of these actually would.
Cool. Yeah, I'm sure that also people in DorkbotPDX would be excited to come and check out those presentations too. Yes.
So you say that you have a limited funding for your project. Have you ever thought about going to the big company where they love to see, like, provide funding for you to do the project even more?
Yeah, this discussion has come up before, and there's some differences of opinion, but in general, I think most of the DorkbotPDX organizations have not been tied specifically to a company, especially when it comes to funding. So there's also a fine line there between funding and like sponsorship. So like giving us a space where we can plug stuff in and like work versus borrowing money from or getting a donation from a company expressly to like build something that they're going to reap benefits from. I think that's the type of relationship that we're mostly trying to avoid, is becoming financially married to a single entity. But yeah, certainly we have leveraged resources from companies when working on projects.
So kind of going off that, I've been to one of the Make hacker spaces before, like Make sponsored ones. So how do you guys differ from those, like the Make groups?
So we're not based out of a physical space, and Make is backed by O'Reilly, right? So they have a ton of money, and they're pouring money into this, mostly. And so
DorkbotPDX recently.
yeah, so they're funded with DARPA money, but so is this lab. So it's a good question, but this is way more grassroots, and it's also really less. It has less of an agenda. Right? Like our main agenda is to get people engaged and to build some interesting things and to perform some art. And that's kind of that's our only real agenda.
So can you say a little bit about the PCB board or the cost?
Yeah, I should pull up the website. So it's .com.
I spelled it again.
Well, at least I'm consistent. So yeah, this is Lane's PCB orders service, or the service formerly known as Lane's PCB order. And what it allows you to do is to use Eagle or any of the other PC board layout software, circuit building, design, schematic capture programs that are out there. Roll a PC board into some Gerbers and then actually use that big purple button. You can create an account and upload them right on here. And
I got pricing and specs.
yeah, he does have pricing and specs. It's pretty affordable.
I kind of want to say that I'm with a student group here.
Yeah.
And we lead the quadcopter team. And we use Land's PCB ordering for our boards. And it went great. Like, it was great. So, and it's like $5 on a square inch or something. Yeah, for free, and you get 3 copies. And it's just really great. It was good.
If you read a lot of the technical sort of make amateur enthusiast blogs these days, you'll see a lot of purple circuit boards.
We saw a lot of them in New York.
Yeah.
We just went to the Open Hardware Summit.
I bet you saw a lot of purple boards.
Yeah.
We did.
So yeah, the background on the website kind of matches the boards, and they're really nice. They're nice and neat. They're well built, and they're affordable. So let's see, 2-inch square board costs you $10, and you get 3 of them. So if it's 2x1, which is pretty small, you pay $10 and you get 3 boards, and it takes about 12 days. Pretty good turn. I know when I was in college, 12 days seemed like an eternity, but it's still a pretty good turn.
You have to route them out yourself, or does they come pre-routed, divided up?
I think he's still, so I think they're, they're partitioned, and I think he's breaking them apart, but they'll probably come with rough edges that need to be sanded down, I think.
We've been working with them to do, analyze 10 by 10 different, so that we can actually take the out.
Any other questions?
More questions? Yep.
Got a few more minutes, I think. Don?
If you were to do one of these again, or branch it, what would you do differently?
A different organization?
Yes, you were to work with a different group as somebody who was founding and guiding over the last 6 years. What would you do differently?
That's a really good question. I would probably be more diligent about being consistent. Like, I think it's important to keep things on a schedule. Like, we haven't had talks like since I think spring or early summer, and we're overdue for that. It's challenging, but I'd like to see that keep up. So I'd like to have maybe more recurring consistency. That'd be the main thing I would change. What would you change? What would you change?
I don't know, I've been trying to figure it out.
Yeah, it's a hard question. So I think we are doing a lot of things right. I mean, I really think we are.
I think I would probably monetize it at some point.
Yeah.
Given that we don't have, like Seattle or some of those spaces that come up and talk to us, where they've actually got galleries that actually sponsor this space that they work in. And then when they need money, they have an organization they can go through. I think I would monetize. That's probably the biggest thing I would do differently.
So it's definitely a limiting factor. It limits on what we can do. Yes?
So is there leadership, or how does that work?
Sorry, I've never done here. I did kind of fail to get into the proper level of detail. So
Jason is basically the president.
No, it's not true. So traditionally, DorkbotPDX has an overlord. So there's one person called the regional overlord who sort of runs things. And mostly they administer the email list and make sure that they're responsible for curating lectures, basically, and talks. In Portland, we have 3 overlords. There's me and 2 other people technically designated as overlords, because Don is still an overlord. And he's rolling his eyes. But really beyond the overlord, so even though I'm one of 3 overlords, I am only standing up here because I kind of take a more active role, and that's by choice. Like I'm just trying to step up and help out because I really am inspired by this community. Anybody that wants to help take part in steering, we have an informal steering committee that meets before our meetings, usually for dinner, and it's open to anybody who wants to take a more active role in sort of steering or deciding what kinds of things we're working on when we do events and what kinds of events. We've probably done a pretty bad job of publicizing that. That's always there. And so as far as organization, very, very loosely organized. There's a handful of us that are just stepping up. Mostly we're looking for people to step up and take an active role.
We had an anarchist come stay with us. And he was from one of our hacker spaces in San Francisco. And he must have grilled us for like 2 hours looking for our leader. And I'm like, no, we're like a participatory democracy. You know what that is? It was just bizarre.
It's really true. Yeah, we've been saying that for years, and I was kind of skeptical, but we just keep seeing it happening more and more, and it's actually working, which is really amazing that it is working for us.
Good, we should wrap up here. Thanks a lot, Jason.